Jamie Greene, please.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. I should say from the outset that we will be supporting the Seatbelts and School Transport Bill brought before us today. We welcome the constructive manner that's been taken in the Chamber on the issue, but also in committee, in the Rural Economy and Connectivity Committee. If I could turn specifically to the amendments laid before us by Neil Bibby today, I'm pleased to say that we will support them. We did consider them very carefully. And there was initially some reservations around some of the wording, particularly in Amendment 8. If I could draw our attention to the insertion of a quite a substantial piece of wording around the guidance on the wearing of seatbelts. In particular, in Section 8 was point 2, in that a school authority must have regard to such guidance. I felt that perhaps there was some weakness in the wording of that in terms of what specifically that meant for schools. What duties or additional duties would we be placing on schools themselves? Is that the teachers of the schools, the head teachers, the drivers of the buses, the monitors, senior pupils? I felt that whilst there was some ambiguity to that, and I'd be welcome to hear perhaps in the closing message from Mr. Bibby, if he could define what he thinks, or how he thinks that might manifest itself in practice. But that being said, overall, we have absolutely no problem with the concept that Scottish ministers must publish guidance around the steps in which schools must take around promoting the wearing and usage of the seatbelts, which will have to be fitted as a result of the legislation. So as a result of all of the above, we will be supporting all of Mr. Bibby's amendments today. Thank you. I do welcome the opportunity to open for my benches on this debate. I've participated in the very sessions in the Rural Economy Committee over this. And I should say from the outset and congratulate Gillian Martin for the constructive approach that she's taken with the committee and all parties to get this bill into the place that it's in today. I have absolutely no doubt that as a new member navigating through the legislative process has not been an easy one, so she should be proud of that achievement. We will, of course, be voting for this bill today. We believe that it will help improve the safety of children travelling on school transport. One of the early comments we made on this was that the initial incarnation of the bill only applied to commuting to and from the place of school. We felt very strongly that it should also include school trips, and I'm very pleased to see that that has been included in this final stage of the bill. We know around 100,000 school children every day will benefit from this, and it is important that the availability of seatbelts will go some way towards encouraging good habits in relation to safety on buses. I also commend Labour for its additional work in strengthening this bill with their amendment on the production of guidance. I think that was a valid and wise introduction to the bill, and we were pleased to support that, and equally pleased to see the government accepted that today too. The Royal Society for the Prevention of Accidents and also the First Group, which operate a number of bus services, agreed in their written consultations to the committee, and I was very pleased to see that this garnered wide support from not just industry, but also many third sectors and parents in schools themselves. I'd like to draw attention to a quote from Inspector Grant Edward of Tayside Police, who, during a crackdown on the failure to wearing seatbelts, said the following quote in the media. He said, "It's easy to get the impression that you're travelling safely when you're sitting comfortably inside a moving vehicle. That is an illusion that is instantly shattered if, for whatever reason, the vehicle stops sharply." Now, the wearing of seatbelts has been high on the agenda in cars for such a long time, but not on buses, so it's right that we turn our attention to this. On average, 45 children in Scotland were injured whilst on a bus or a coach in the years between 2010 and 2015. Now, that's 45 too many in all our eyes. Also, the World Health Organization identified that the inclusion of seatbelts reduces the risk of fatalities by 25% and minor injuries by 75%. Of course, we are not without our concerns entirely in the process. I think it is pertinent that we do turn to the financial memorandum, which has been reproduced. It details a cost of around £765,000 annually as a cost of the bill following the legal commencement of it. I think my first reservation, and I may have expressed this in committee, is that there was at no point in the process were there any guarantees that any money given to local authorities through the COSLA arrangements or existing block arrangements would be guaranteed to be spent on seatbelts, and indeed there is no guarantees that any of this money would be ring-fenced specifically for the purposes of fitting or retrofitting or future fitting of seatbelts, and that is still a concern that I have, albeit perhaps too late to do anything about it in the legislation itself. And my second point of concern on the finances was around the 11th hour change to the financial memorandum, which actually leaves us very little time to further scrutinise it as we are sitting here at stage 3 in the debate. So, I mean, I think if we on these benches have any ambiguity over the numbers, for example, we're yet to get any definitive figure on the potential cost liability of what would have happened if any existing contracts had been breached or had to be broken as a result of the legislation. And I really do think that's something that the bill team in general should have had more knowledge and sight of. But in closing, despite these obstacles, to end on a positive, we will be supporting this bill today. It really is a step in the right direction, and it will be fundamental in improving the safety of school children on public transport. It is a clear example of what Parliament can do when it uses the wide-ranging powers that it's been given at its disposal, and this legislation truly will help the lives of Scots across our country. So I do thank Gillian Martin for bringing it to us today. Thank you.